So yes, the story is, of course, Patsy Stevenson calls out transphobia and media bias, and this is kind of an extension on a previous story we did back when we discussed the anti-Semitism inherent in the gender critical community or movement in the UK. For those that don't know, Patsy Stevenson sort of rose in prominency when she was arrested at the Sarah Everard vigil held in Clapham Common on the 14th of March this year. Sarah Everard was a woman who was kidnapped and later murdered by a British police officer. Uh, a load of people gathered at Clapham Common. They were just having a quiet vigil. They were respecting social distancing rules, etc. They were all wearing masks. The police waited throughout the day, did absolutely nothing until night came along, at which point they charged the people who were giving talks, arrested a bunch of women and dragged them off into the dark. And Patsy Stevenson sort of became the main image behind that, because there was a series of photos of her taken where she was forced against the ground by officers. Her mask had come off, potentially exposing her to the virus, etc. London Mayor called it out. It was generally a big media issue. And then the gender critical crowd decided to have a normal one and started claiming that Patsy Stevenson was a crisis actor, and that she was working for the global cabal, etc., all of which are incredibly anti-Semitic conspiracies. And so that's why we covered it, because a lot of people talk about the way that the gender critical movement or TERFs in the UK have been tricked into supporting the right. It's no, they're all just a bunch of Nazis. Just because a Nazi is a woman doesn't mean she stops being a Nazi. So we talked about that. Another big issue at the time when this is happening is the British government was trying to pass a bill that would effectively make it illegal to protest. Any protest that was deemed a nuisance or public disturbance, which the point of a protest is to catch people's attention. It's to disturb whatever they're doing, catch their attention, and sometimes they also make people feel helpless a little bit to show, hey, this is what we live through every day of our life right now. It's a slight taste. Think about how frustrated it makes you, and maybe listen to us when we talk about very important stuff. Thankfully, because of the protests like the one Patsy Stevenson took part of, because, of course, as this whole thing blew up, everyone was were the police, doing this violence just to, quelch any opposition to the bill, etc. The bill was halted. It stopped for a while. However, it recently reignited. Just having a look here. Yes, anyway, on the 5th of July, the bill was passed its third reading. By the time of the previous protest in which Patsy had been arrested, it only passed the second. It was then stalled. It is now past its third reading, which has just reignited the whole protest involved. And there was the Kill the Bill rally, which Patsy Stevenson attended. And what's really interesting about the way that Patsy Stevenson talked, and this was posted across Twitter by various groups, is the fact that she acknowledges, first of all, that she has a lot of privilege compared to a lot of other demographics, and she really showed how the media attempted to approach her and get her to be, this, the perfect victim sort of thing, and she told them to go and talk to other groups who are constantly being affected by things such as police brutality. To quote a video that was posted online, quote, "So I mean, the media wanted me to talk about police brutality, and obviously I've only experienced it sort of once in my life. And when I said that they should speak to someone who has experienced it several times throughout their lives, some people experience it all the time, every day, you know, they said no. And they only wanted to talk to me. And I feel like that's so strange, how people only want to listen, probably because I'm a white girl and I pass as straight and I'm able-bodied and all the other shit that the media love. End quote. Now, I wanted to like highlight this part of the conversation because we so often hear the word ally being thrown around, sort of thing. Sadly, very rarely in a positive sense. Usually it is someone is an absolute bigot. They use the term ally to sort of hide behind. And I feel that the way Patsy Stevenson discussed things here and actually like noted how she took action. She told the media to go talk to groups who actually were impacted by police brutality day in, day out. You know, the UK police are known for their racism. Racism's a massive issue there. We also covered recently how the majority of hate crime victims do not feel safe around UK police. You know, these groups are groups that constantly are being victimized by police. Same for disabled people. So I think like it's good to actually present. Actually, this is what a good ally should be doing. You know, they do at times need to put aside their own ego and like tell the media, no, this is not right. You need to do this, and they should rat out when the media fails to do that. She also called out transphobia in supposedly feminist spaces, stating that, quote, trans women are women, so all the TERFs can shut the fuck up, which, as I end quote, which is, you know, a general sentiment which we can really appreciate. Again, the reason the Gender Critical started claiming she was a crisis actor was because Patsy Stevenson was very open about her vocal support for the trans community back when she was arrested. So anyway, that kind of brings us to the Kill the Bill demonstration itself, because I think there's a lot to talk about there as well. The specific bill is the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, and it's currently working itself through the UK system, and it has the exact wording that it gives the police the power to arrest of is any protest deemed, quote, a nuisance, end quote. So you know, it's a very disturbing bill. It's one that a lot of people criticize for like being evidence of a worsening police state in the UK, and it will effectively put an end to any protest, including those against the government's failure to address racism. We saw this like recently with Priti Patel, who, if you don't know, is a conservative. She has a hand in deporting people, sometimes to their deaths, you know, tearing families apart, etc. She was also part of a group of people who really, what's the word I'm looking for? Mocked the English football team recently for taking a knee against racism, only to then later on pretend like she gave a damn after the torrent of racism that was like thrown at the players publicly, both online and offline. You know, threats were made, all this sort of stuff. So, you know, like, there's institutional racism in the UK system. Recently, the government invented a report that it was criticised by various, it's criticised by various Black, Asian, and other ethnic groups because they were claiming that the report had been co-authored by writers of colour who had no involvement in it, just so that they could lie and say whatever they wanted. So again, you can't protest that. You can't protest racism in the UK if this bill passes. With transphobia, we've seen the absolute abhorrent state of things. The UK courts have effectively ruled that Gillett competence no longer stands, and not only does Gillett competence not only stand, but trans people, even those that are technically considered adults in UK medicine, because the age of full medical consent in the UK is 16, So 16 and 17-year-olds, even they can't consent to medical procedures without first going to court and getting court approval, effectively making them second-class citizens. The government's recently announced that it's doing a review of bathrooms, and it's going to install legislation that effectively is going to destroy a lot of gender-neutral bathrooms. So you can't protest that. But what I wanted to talk about here is another specific case which relates to disability and protests there, because the police already have a long history of violence when it comes to, disabled people. For example, in 2015, there was a particularly brutal incident in which police dragged disabled people from the House of Commons on live national television, who were protesting the complete removal of a £320 million independent living fund, which helped more than 20,000 people with severe disabilities. The police is already bold enough to do this on national television, and this is not the only instance. There was another one in 2019, a very similar instance that happened at the House of Commons. It has just been going on time and time again, especially with the austerity cuts by the Tory government. And there's absolutely no resistance coming from the fucking Labour Party on this. So again, we can see the intersection of all these issues: racism, transphobia, ableism, and this bill just impacts all of them in such a horrific way. And I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, Levi. I realize I've kind of been motor mouthing it.
Considering I've spent the last over an hour talking with Robin, that's fine. I don't really have anything to add. You're much better at the British politics than I am.
Robin, is there anything that you may have noticed that I missed?
Not that I've noticed, no.
Okay. I thought you were going to say something else, Levi.
Yeah, I'm just going to say you're much better at the British politics than I am. It's almost like I've never been there before and you have.
Well, that's the thing. I've only taught myself in the last decade or so, because at school we didn't get taught jack
Oh, I'm
shit.
sorry. You only had a decade to teach yourself. That's only 5 times longer than I've had.
Okay. But yeah, they don't teach you anything in school or college, and
No, they
seems to be a big part of why.
Yeah, I'm just the other day I was reading through the transcript of the video we did about assimilation in July of last year. To just because I've been thinking about doing a video on Neelix from Star Trek Voyager being an anti-assimilationist icon. And my God, we were terrible at our jobs back then, but me especially, I'm just realizing how much I've learned in such a short time. Oh, we have over 20 people watching. That's nice.
Hello. But yeah, so this bill impacts so many different people in so many different ways. It's just with how everything's been going for the disabled community, for the trans community, and for the various ethnic communities, especially the black community in the UK. It's just the last thing we want is more of a fucking police state, but that's what the government's giving us, So yeah, I just wanted to sort of give an update as well as link the Kill the Bill to what we're talking about today with the intersection of being trans and being disabled, because it's just becoming, the UK is becoming more and more of a shithole.